All right. Happy Friday. We are having, I'd say, a rather unusual discussion for conferences, except when you're in the pandemic of COVID. We are going to be having a fantastic discussion with LaToya, who is going to be add some insight into pandemic prepping and all that fun stuff around COVID and what we're going to do at our conference that we are hosting in Denver on February 10th and 11th, 2022. And we really want everybody to know that we're taking this seriously, but we need this to be in person because as we were just trying to do it before, it's not the same effect when we're trying to talk through a computer. And so we really are bringing LaToya's expertise and how we prep, we plan to make sure this in-person conference goes off without a hitch. And with that, I'm going to flip it over to Katherine.
Well, it's really good to be on air and to be here with LaToya. And our event is February 10th and 11th in Denver, Colorado. And LaToya is our pandemic compliance officer, which I didn't even know existed. So first of all, LaToya, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And tell us, what is a pandemic compliance officer?
So, of course, it was birthed through the pandemic. I'm a conference planner by trade. And when the world literally shut down for what we thought was going to be 2 weeks, it extended and conferences weren't happening in person and people were, contracting COVID and getting sick and all of that. So the CDC and Johns Hopkins University came together specifically for event planners and held a seminar, certification, and exam to allow event planners to become pandemic compliance officers. So that is what I did. And I've been doing it for about 18 months. So I am on site at conferences, smaller events, movie shootings, commercials, just to make sure that everyone is adhering to whatever guidelines are in place by the host.
Can you tell us more about that? How does it work? What does it look like? And what have you been seeing at these events? Because you've been at small events up to 20,000 people, in-person events.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's a mixed bag because we go off of what the CDC and the World Health Organization announces, but then we have to also follow the guidelines for whatever state we're in, and then whatever location we're at, and then what's comfortable for the event host. So, of course, we are all aware that we have to wear masks on planes. We have to wear masks in Uber, but those are federally mandated. So what's mandated in the state that you're in for a conference that's in person? So I lean to the DMOs or the Convention and Visitors Bureau to get that information. I pass that on to my client. And we've seen it across the board where you have to have a mask to enter. We have to check your temperature. We ask the basic questions of how do you feel? Do you have a temperature? Have you come in contact with anybody? We ask that you wear your mask until you get into the event site. And then once you're seated, you can remove your mask and, have conversations, eat your meals and stuff like that.
So I'm guessing this changes somewhat rapidly or can be on a weekly basis, the updates, or what are you seeing from just the flow of information to make these decisions?
So it does change. Sometimes it changes from AM to PM, honestly. When I was in Vegas and there was 10,000+, we had to wear masks when we entered the convention center. And then once we were in the actual meeting space, we could remove our masks. Buffets are totally different now. They're not allowing people to go up and everyone touches the same tongues and utensils and all of that. So typically the staff is behind plexiglass and they're making your plate for you. So you're not touching anything besides the utensils you're going to use. Coffee stations are different. Water stations are different. A lot of times people have brought their own water bottles because we want to conserve the earth and the world and all of that. But when you're filling your water bottle at a water fountain that is used by everyone, it's not safe right now. So you just have to be mindful, of those little things that could cause cross-contamination. Yeah.
And can I ask overall, how's the experience been for the attendee? How is that being considered or handled during the conference of the event?
So of course, there's pros and cons. You have those that don't want to wear a mask no matter what, and it's your preference. If you don't want to wear a mask and the event requires that you need to wear one to enter, and if you check that box that you're going to do so, you have to honor your word. But I think everyone wants to get back to some semblance of normalcy. Now, I will never say we're going to go back to where we were, because we may not need to go back there. But we do want to be cautious. We want to be healthy, and we don't want an outbreak. And so I can say this year, I've been to at least 20 conferences. There have been no outbreaks. We all were in person. We all had masks. We all answered the questions, to the best of our ability about who we've come in contact with, where we've come from. And there hasn't been an issue at all.
Wow, that's phenomenal. I'm going to ask, because I'm sure this question will be asked, is what do you guys do with that data you collect? What do you do when I answer those questionnaires? And how do you make sure you're not sharing it with people I don't want you sharing it with?
Right. So
probably a little paranoid, but maybe maybe Catherine's husband, Rob, would appreciate it.
So the information, it typically says, at least with my conferences, it says that the information is only kept with the conference and event organizers. So we take that information and we create spreadsheets so that if you say you have come in contact or you checked your fever and it's 102 or whatever, we know we need to find you. We know we need to quarantine you and figure out what's going on so that you're not in contact with other people. So that's why we use that information. And then once the event is over, we can send a closing email to say, guess what? Everyone had their conference or had their event. There were no outbreaks. It was a success. See you next year. Or we may have to say someone did, contract COVID, and these 5 people, we won't name them.
Of course.
But let's say there were 5 people that came in contact with that person. We reach out to them individually to say, you need to go get tested. If you test negative, carry on. If you test positive, let us know. We remain in contact until you test negative. But we have not had to do that.
That's awesome.
That's really fantastic. And so for our event, because we're working in the senior care world and our event caters to senior care and they're the caregivers of older people, we will be focused on what the state requirements are at that time. And yes, they are ever changing. LaToya, can you expand on some of the things that you expect that we'll be doing at our event?
Absolutely. So once registration is complete, the attendees will receive an email with the know before you go, so that people are aware that they have to have a mask when they enter, that their temperature will be checked when they enter the general session area. And then we will inform them of what the meal will look like. If it is a buffet, we'll explain the difference between the buffet that everyone's used to versus what they're going to receive. And then coffee stations, water stations, items on your table. A lot of people are so used to going into a meeting, seeing your notepad, a pen, a water, all that type stuff. And now it is very bare, so to speak, where there aren't a lot of pens and pads and tchotchkes and stuff on the table. And it's just so that there is no cross-contamination. So it'll be very quick. There won't be very long lines of asking, your firstborn and your grandmother's name, none of that type stuff. So it's really 3 or 4 questions, very quickly asked, and then you enter and start your session. And it's only asked once on that day, and you're set for the whole day.
Okay.
Fantastic. And so what are some of the other things that you do to prep for a safe event? There's a lot of communication that happens. What else?
Yes. So I lean to the CDC website, the WHO website, and then I take it a step further because those websites are very generic information. And then I have to go to denver.org or denver.gov to get that set of information. And then I reach out to the people on the ground, and the people at the hotel. Because, for example, if they remove the mask mandate, let's say tomorrow they say no mask ever, you're fine. But the Westin says you have to wear a mask. Well, if the Westin is saying you have to wear a mask, we have to inform our attendees that you have to wear a mask no matter what other people are saying. So there's a lot of moving parts, and there may be a lot of emails, and it'll always say most updated correspondence, because things change all the time.
And that most updated correspondence will also be available on our website. So
Mhm.
that would be the place that you would go to find out exactly what we know as of right now.
Mhm.
And we're very excited to get back in person and have people interacting with each other. We will take all of the steps that are necessary because we don't want to get anyone sick. We don't want to
Absolutely.
have any
And
sort of
people that listen to this video, whether it's live or they watch the recording, some of them will be very cautious to say, oh my God, they're talking about COVID, the pandemic, I'm not going. And I would recommend that based on your health and individual situation, that you don't not attend because you don't want to wear a mask, or oh my God, they're going to ask me what my temperature is, or they're going to check my temperature. As of right now, I highly doubt there has been no one that has had their temperature checked or has been asked a question. You have to answer those same questions getting on an airplane. You have to answer those same questions getting in your Uber, and we're just carrying it through to the event to make sure that we're safe, and that's it.
That's well said. I think too. My dad's a big believer in this. We take inherent risk every day, right? Whether you're driving a car, walk across the street, I mean, we I think take some of that for granted that it's not really a risk, but in reality, it's a very much a risk, right? And I think we have to also ask ourselves, what are we missing by not connecting, right? What are we missing by not learning from each other, not growing from each other? Because we cannot have another 4, 5, 6 months where we're not improving what we're doing, especially when we're talking about aging, because it has been one of the most impacted sectors in the pandemic.
Absolutely.
And I cannot stress that enough, that we need to learn from each other through emotions, through connections, through physical, body movement, right? Where we're learning how we improve what we do every day. And we can't always do that through a computer. And we are all aging every day, whether we want to admit or not. And now is the time to start tackling these challenges that have arisen over the last 18, 19 months.
Absolutely.
And allowing providers and the people involved to share best practices in senior care. So many people in senior care have learned so much over these last almost 2 years. And Francis, I'm still kind of mad at you because early on in the pandemic, you said, I think this could last 2 years. And I said, dare say that. And here we are.
I want to pull that video. I want to pull that video because I kind of am sick to my stomach the fact that I actually might have been right about something.
Fault, Francis.
It's my fault. Yes, ma'am. It is totally my fault.
Right there on Francis's shoulders. Yes. So,
but to your point, Katherine, it is very important for us to get back to in-person meeting. The human connection, the emotion, the dialogue. You don't have to necessarily hug and handshake and all of that, but to be in a room with someone where you can have an engaging conversation and you're learning and bouncing things off of each other. It's not the same when you're online or you're on Zoom because things are muted, you're paused, you're frozen. I mean, we dealt with that just creating this live today. So you definitely need to get back to being in person and having that human connection.
Agree 100%. And very well said. And LaToya, I cannot thank you enough for your expertise, for you working to, expand your knowledge to be such an incredible resource for us. And I sincerely mean that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And I hope that our audience here takes comfort in hearing that we have a pandemic compliance officer on staff who is helping us with this event, who will be on site at the Westin Hotel, downtown Denver, February 10th and 11th. And she is certified. She has resources from the CDC, from the state of Colorado, as well as deep connection with the Westin Hotel to make sure that we are covering all of the bases here. And it is our goal to keep you all safe, healthy, and hopefully happy and learning and growing and inspired through this event.
Absolutely.
Well, everybody enjoy your weekend. It is Friday. Try to relax, have some fun, and we look forward to seeing everybody February 10th and 11th in Denver, Colorado. So thank you again, LaToya. Thank you, Katherine. And we will all talk soon.